Hey, this is Manny with Not Waiting to Live. I am a former Mercedes-Benz car salesman, and in this video, I'm going to give you a crash course sales training on how to sell your own car in a private sale. So if you're looking to sell your car through a private sale, whether that's Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or a sign in your car's window in your front yard, you are probably trying to make a couple $1,000s more than you could if you were to try to trade in that vehicle. So in this video, I'm going to show you what you need to know to save you time. So I'm going to show you how to weed out the buyers that are going to waste your time. And I'm also going to show you how to set yourself up in the best position possible before negotiating so you can sell your car for more than you'd be able to otherwise. Now, before I get into this, I want to give you a little bit of a background of what a sale really is. And I want to lead off and speak candidly. I think that the best salespeople are the right kind of stupid. And I'm going to connect the dots on what that means here. So when I first got into car sales and sales in general, I've sold other things in my life, including engineering solutions. I'm an engineer as well. So sales, I've heard put a few different ways. The simplest and the most incorrect way is that something is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And that is at best half complete. Something is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it and what someone is willing to simultaneously sell that for. So let's just throw that definition aside. The one that I first bought into when I was a car salesman was that a sale is when value exceeds cost. And that makes sense, but the trouble with that is that value, for all intents and purposes, is typically limited to the quantifiable. And people buy, particularly vehicles, for emotional reasons that go beyond that. So it's not really fully useful or a fully useful definition. So the definition that I think applies most universally, not only to car sales, but sales in general, is that a sale takes place when you can take someone from where they are now to where they want to be. And that is why I say the best salespeople are the right kind of stupid, because they don't assume things. They don't assume that what they know, the buyer knows. They don't assume things that the buyer hasn't said. They ask the extra question. And sales is about questions, thoughtful, insightful questions based on your experience and based on your experience with working with people in this situation. So you're trying to focus the buyer's attention. You're not trying to trick them. You're trying to get them to say in their own words what their existing situation is, and in their own words what their ideal outcome is. And hopefully, coincidentally, you have the vehicle, no pun intended, to take them from where they are now to where they want to be. So that is sales in a nutshell. But now let's dive into the steps that you're going to need to follow here to sell your own car for the most money possible. As with anything in life, a lot of success comes with the preparation. So the first thing that I want you to do is, I'm not going to get too into the technical aspects of selling your own car, but you do need to make sure that you have a clean title. So if you owe money on this vehicle, that means you don't have the actual title, you have a memorandum title. Somebody else technically owns the car, they've loaned you money to borrow it, you need to pay that off, because you're going to have difficulty having this private buyer register that vehicle. They're not going to be able necessarily to give you the money that they need in advance without you having a clean title. So make sure there's a clean title, you've paid it off outright, or I guess in addition, you make sure that there are no liens or something suspicious with this title, because you are going to have to, I recommend, go and register it with this buyer to make sure there's no issues. So you're only saving yourself time by doing this. You also, in the preparation phase, need to establish the value of your own vehicle. You need to have a point of reference. So you can use a website like Kelley Blue Book to see what the trade-in value of that vehicle might be. Make sure that the biggest variable with those valuations are going to be based on the condition of the vehicle. Make sure that you're selecting the appropriate condition of the vehicle. I found that those values are in the ballpark of even the paid resources I use for vehicle data. So That is a good place. And the other way to establish value is to just get a quote from a dealership. Even if you don't want to drive in and have a dealer evaluate your car, send them an email off or an email description of what you have. Say, what's the ballpark of what you would offer me for this vehicle? Here's some photos, here's a description, what is it? Because you're going to need this number, you're going to use this later on when you're interacting with your potential buyer. Then the last step of the preparation phase here is to research the alternatives for your car in your area. So you need to understand what year, model, make, mileage, condition is in your general locations. Probably keep it to around 300 miles. And the reason is that's probably about as far as anybody would care to drive in a day, maybe a little bit more to buy a car. So just try and look at the regional area, and this gives you a sense of what someone who's contacted you, what their other options are, and what price points those are at. And that's going to help in the negotiation phase. So once you've done that, let's assume you've solicited sales somehow, either whether it's that sign in your driveway, Facebook Marketplace, something, somebody reaches out to you, whether that's email or phone. You're probably going to want to work by phone, what I'm describing, but I am going to detail the exact questions and exact words that you need to say to set yourself up well. And I'll have a companion post to this on my car blog on notwaitingtolive.com. So you'll see the questions printed out there if you need to write them down, practice them, or work them into a format that's more comfortable for you. And I do want to say here, just to jump in, if at any point you find this content useful, helpful, please take the time to like the video, comment if you can. This is the way the YouTube algorithm picks up my content and gives me the incentive to keep making videos like this. So the next step, you get contacted. Somebody calls you up, they send you an email. You need to take the lead. You need to take the lead. This is your vehicle, this is your time, you're in control. And if you do not take control of this, they will walk all over you. And I'll just give you a little bit of a context from my own experience as a car salesman. When I first started in car sales, people would take 2, 3, 4 test drives. And my general manager asked me about that. Why are they taking all these test drives? It's like, well, that's what they wanted. They wanted to see these different cars. Well, the better I got, the less test drives I got, and then it got to the point where no matter who was coming in, no matter what they were looking to purchase, we'd take one test drive. And that's because the better you get at asking questions, the better you get at focusing the customer's attention, the better you get at ruling out alternatives before you spend the time to invest it in a test drive. I mean, it's a 100% commission job, and really on your end, this is a 100% commission job too, because you're only going to make the extra money that you can get above trading into a dealership. So take control, answer the phone, answer the email. Yes, this car, whatever it is still for sale. But I'd like to start by first asking you a few questions just to make sure that I'm respectful of your time and I'm respectful of my time. And if it sounds like it's possible for us to reach an agreement, then we can schedule a time to make an inspection and schedule a test drive. Does that sound okay to you? Wait for them to answer this question. They need to respond. Yes, no. If they don't answer this question directly, a huge red flag that they're just going to try and walk all over you and waste your time. Take the lead, let them follow. This is the first step to that. Now you need to understand their current situation. So again, no matter what people are buying in life, people are pretty confused. They don't really have a sense of direction. They don't really have goals. They just kind of wander into things. You need to understand in their own words, what exactly is going on here? So start off with the question, why did you contact me? What made you reach out to me about this car? See what that is. Maybe I need a car this month and this is the only thing that I can afford. Or this is my dream car. This is the only one I've seen online that isn't totally rusted out within 500 miles. These are all data points you need to listen to. It's going to tell you the story in their own words. And it's a little caveat too, I think about that I wrote down here. You also want to make sure for today's day and age, make sure they're not saying, well, the dealer's closed and this is the car I want, so this is the only one I can test drive. They might not be taking this seriously at all. They might be totally wasting your time. But then we want to establish what's their experience level. Don't take this for granted. Have you ever done a private sale before? Ask them this question. Maybe no, okay, they don't have the experience. Maybe yes. Like, yeah, I buy cars, I only buy private sale cars, do this all the time, walk in the park, I'm an ex-mechanic. Or they might say, yeah, I did, it was terrible. It took forever for the bank to approve me of a loan. And once I bought the car, I got a flat tire and I sued the guy and ruined his life. It was terrible. People will tell you things if you ask the question. So then we want to understand, what made you consider a private sale seller over a dealership? It's just a simple question, just again, trying to get a sense of what is attracting them to this. What are they open to? They might say, I'm not actually I'm really sketched out about private sellers. I just wanted to see because this was like $3,000 less that was on the dealership's lot. Usually the main reason somebody is considering a private seller is because they're trying to save money. Right? There's almost always an alternative out there that you have to sell somewhere else on some other lot. It just costs more money. But this is starting to get them to say in their own words, oh yeah, I am going to this guy because he is thousands of dollars less. Get them thinking that, speaking that way. And then I know if you're not comfortable in a sales setting, these might seem like a lot of questions, but they're really not, especially the more you practice them. And I can tell you from experience, I've asked way more questions than these in a dealership setting before walking into a test drive. So stay with me here. These are essential questions. You do want to understand, how long have you been looking for this new car? This is valuable information. Maybe they've been looking for 6 months. They go, I've been looking for 6 months and this is the only one I found that fits my criteria. Or maybe they say, I just started today, really just browsing, curious, wanted to see how low you could go. They try to cut to the chase of price. And what you need to understand here, especially in used car sales, but sales in general, it's not about price. And you might think, of course it's about price. No, it's not. When you are selling something that someone needs, that they understand is an outcome that they desire, it's more about the outcome than it is about the price of what you have. So when you can actually solve genuine problems for people, it becomes much less about price. You become much more likely to get the price that you are asking. So see how long they're looking for a new car, and then we want to understand, how long are you planning to look for a new car? So, okay, you've been looking for 6 months. How much longer are you going to look? They might say, oh, I need it by the end of the week or the month. They might say, oh, I don't care, this year, next year, I haven't bought a new car in 30 years. I just dilly-dally. People are going to waste your time. Try to get a sense of, what does this look like? And then ask the question when they answer, what happens if you don't find the right car? This is trying to establish some urgency. They might say, well, you know what? I just got a new job. I don't have a car now. I need a car by the end of the week. Okay, that's pretty high level of urgency. That's great from a seller's perspective. If they're like indefinite, I don't care. If I don't find the right car, I'll sit on my cash forever. I make my own rules kind of guy. All right, that person's going to waste your time. So we're trying to again, vet these people out to make sure that this is a good use of both of our time. Now, also, another important question is to ask, what other vehicles are you considering? And again, trust me here, if you're new to this is comfortable. People will answer these questions and they're great information. If you're selling a Honda Accord, they're like, well, I'm looking at other Honda, Toyota Camrys in the area. This kind of hurts your case. If you're selling a specialty car and they're looking for that exact specialty car, I personally, even as a car salesman, I overpaid for a Jeep Wrangler because I knew it was exactly what I wanted. I knew that it's been its whole life in Florida and I live in Cleveland, and ultimately I had no problem overpaying for that because it was exactly what I wanted. No rust, impossible to find in this part of the country. It fit my needs. So you want to understand that. And from the logistical side, we're kind of getting into the back half of these questions here for their situation. Ask them, what are you driving now? They're like, oh, I drive an old truck, or I have a Camry, or I got a Mercedes. Gives you a sense of how far of a leap is what you have for sale and what they're currently driving. Maybe they're buying this for their 16-year-old. They'll tell you. Maybe they're buying it for themselves and it's way out of their price range. Red flag. If they're driving a Accord and they want to buy a 1-year-old S-Class, that's information that's useful to you. So logistically, questions of how unravel a lot of bad faith negotiating positions. How can I do that? So if they do have a car, do you plan to sell this car? How do you plan to replace this car if you buy my car? They might say, well, I'm going to trade it in. Okay, there's a data point. If they're going to trade in their vehicle, that could be a problem for you, because what if you go through all this time, you're reaching an agreement, and it's all contingent upon them getting what they expected for their trade-in. But when they drive over to the dealership to trade in their own car, they don't get as much as they expect. Are they going to come back to you and say, hey, we got to sell it for $1,000 less now because I have $1,000 less? Very useful question, just to understand what they're going to do with this. And you want to ask broader questions beyond that. So, how do you plan to pay for this vehicle? Is it cash? They say, oh, cash deal. And they say, then follow up, is there anything that you need to do to have that cash? Because do you need to trade in that car? Do you need 3 more paychecks? Do you need to wait for your divorce to settle? What needs to happen for you to have the cash? If it's some long-winded thing, and what's the point of coming for an inspection or a test drive if you're 3 months away from having the cash, or 3 years away from having the cash at your asking price? So orient yourself to reality. And then if they don't have cash, if they're going for financing, this is important to know as well. I've personally used third-party financing to purchase a vehicle, so you get a loan for a vehicle before you even buy the vehicle. That's a thing that can happen. It's possible, but you need to make sure. Are you pre-approved for that? Do you have that money? What is it going to take for you to get that money? Don't let people waste your time if they're not qualified to purchase. Now, at this point, if you have a sense they sufficiently answered your questions, you have an idea, okay, this is a legitimate buyer, they're legitimately financially qualified to purchase this, you want to take a second to say, okay, great, thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. I feel confident enough to schedule a time for you to come out and inspect and test drive this vehicle. But I have one last question for you before I do that. If you come out and inspect and test drive this vehicle, what needs to happen for you to buy my car? Have them answer this in their own words. Don't cut them off. If they need to see, well, as long as it works good, and okay, what does that look like? The tires are the tires old, new? Is there a level of rust that's going to make you unhappy? What does that look like? What is the condition that works out well for you? If the mileage checks all the boxes, the condition checks all the boxes, is the price going to check the box? What does that look like? And you get a sense of, well, what does it take for me to buy your car? It needs to be $12,000 less because I'm going to lowball you. Okay, thanks for not wasting my time. Our conversation here is done. Move on to the next one. Or let's say this. Let's say they say, it's got to be meet these certain conditions, and I have to be $1,000 lower than where you're at. You might start the negotiation in advance by offering them something if you know that is a price you're willing to accept. You might make a pre-negotiation and say, well, I like talking with you. You sound like a nice person. What I can say is I am willing to, if you come out on that date, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day it is, if you come out to look at my car and it meets all the boxes like you said, I am willing to lower my price to $500 less. That's my price if you do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep it listed at this price. If they're at least open to that, that's a good sign. If they're not open to that, play that by ear. It depends on where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. So they've answered all these questions. You believe there's a legitimate path to them purchasing your vehicle, that they literally can, and there's an actual achievable outcome that you can agree with. And you've filtered out all of the people that are there to waste your time. There's a ton of them. Then schedule that test drive. When they show up, establish some rapport, just some basic questions. You can get more personal in nature of these questions, just in terms of how they plan to use the vehicle. And the reason is you want to speak in benefits and not features. So if you're like, I want to replace the old van for a new van, this thing, I hate it. It's just so annoying to load stuff in. You say, well, hey, this one has a kick gate, so now you can have both your hands full and put the groceries in the car. Or you could say, well, you know, I've done my research. I know you're looking for a car in this market. This car has the exclusive V6. All the other older ones only had a V4. This thing's really hard to find. That's gonna get you the towing capacity that you're gonna want. You're gonna be pulling that trailer you told me about. Try and connect these to all the features to legitimate benefits. Oh, do you love riding with the sunroof open? Man, I love it in the summer. Or the top off the convertible, I love it. Benefits, 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 okay? Then I wanna walk you through a basic inspection of the car. Now I don't have that as part of this video. I have a separate video about what to look for when buying a used car, and on the last part of that video I go through an actual vehicle inspection. Do the same for them. Call out anything that they could be potentially afraid of. Be transparent. I mean, you don't hide something from these people. If the tires are bad, show them the tires are bad, but come up with an answer of what you think those tires are worth. Well, you know, this car's got 2 bad tires. I think it's worth $200. I've already deducted that from the price. You know, I was gonna ask $19,900, but because it's got 2 bad tires, because that quarter panel's dinged, I'm only asking $19,000. That's how I even arrived at this conclusion for this price. Go through the inspection: tires, brakes, engine, functionality, open all the doors, roll down the windows, open the trunk, make sure everything works. Show them the dipstick to make sure that the oil isn't as dark as Coca-Cola. Really basic stuff. And then what I want you to do is I want you to review what they said needed to happen for them to buy the car. So you go through their test drive and you park the car and you say, hey, you know, when we first talked, you said the car needed to have good tires, had to be in really good shape for this price, and if that happened, you would buy the car. You have a pre-printed contract, and maybe I'll fit one into a blog post or make a separate video about this, but have a very simple contract that's already filled out. Sign it, hand it over to them, have it signed in advance, hand it to them and say, do we have a deal at this price? That's it. Something that they can physically grab and hang on to. Here it is. Do we have a deal? And wait for them to respond. Do not, if they sit there in silence for 10 minutes, wait. Just wait. See what they say. They might say yes, they might say no. They might come back, they might say any number of objections, and you need to address their objections firmly and confidently and have a justification for your objection. So they might say, well, is there any wiggle room? Say, no, there is no wiggle room. I can trade this vehicle in for $18,000. The reason I have it listed for $20,000 is because my time is worth something. I wanted to see if I could sell this for a price that's worth my time. I mean, I have to take in the time to field all these calls and emails, come out and do test drives and inspections with people. I need to go with you to register the vehicle to make sure that there are no problems. This is all worth something. So the price is not negotiable. This is where I'm at. This is what it's worth to me. If I don't get this price, I'm just going to cut my losses and trade it in for $18,000. And remember, this person's only buying your car for the most part because it's cheaper in the first place, because they don't have alternatives. Walk them through what their alternatives are as well. Say, you know, you're asking for wiggle room, but I know what the alternatives are in this area. If you try to buy this car from dealership ABC, you're going to pay $3,000 more. You know, we talked about this. You've been looking for a car for 6 months and you need a car this month. How many more people are you going to look at to purchase a vehicle? Get them thinking back in terms of their outcome. Detach it from price. If you're solving a real need here, you do not need to budge. So when you address their objections, they certainly can walk away. That's what I recommend people to do. And what you do from there is going to be your decision. I mean, it's going to be based on your comfort level and what your own goals and what you're trying to accomplish. But this is what I've laid out here to help you out. I do recommend you do go with them to the DMV or BMV to register the vehicle, just to make sure there's no surprises and that it actually does get registered in your name. I If you found this video helpful, useful, like the video if you can, comment if you can, appreciate feedback, and let me know in the comment section below if there's something that you would like to see covered next. So, thanks guys.